The oldest cycling event in the whole of Flanders, the Scheldeprijs, takes place on the Wednesday between the Ronde van Vlaanderen and Paris-Roubaix. Also known since its birth as the Grand Prix de l'Escaut, this UCI Europe Tour race attracts a stellar field of sprinters in what is a semi-classic that usually builds up to a frantic, fast conclusion. Katusha fans, watch out for Alexander Kristoff, the 25-year-old Norwegian on fast form as we saw at Tour of Flanders, a contender for this one too, as are plenty from Vacansoleil, a few fast men in their ranks. Sky were looking for redemption here after another disappointing day at Flanders. It's difficult to see them challenging seriously in the sprint, but they had Chris Sutton and Bernie Eisel providing options. Movistar would line up Fran Ventoso and José Joaquim Rojas Gil. No Spaniard has ever won this race. Blanca in the meantime riding for Theo Bos, a podium finisher last time out, the Dutch team's big sprint hope in today's race. Moving on to Garmin Sharp, and their hopes are firmly placed on the shoulders of American sprinter Tyler Farrar. He won here a couple of years ago and was second last time out too. Radio Shack not really with options in the sprint, their big fast men missing through illness, so Fabian Cancellara was here to get kilometres. As far as the reigning champion was concerned, Marcel Kittel arrived short of race days, but Mark Cavendish was the big favourite and a man on a mission to break Peter Oliebrandt's 50-year record for the most wins in this event. One the Brit himself equalled 2 years ago by taking victory for a third time. So big names have all won this race in recent years. Would we get a new name to add to the Roll of Honour, or would it be the contenders Cav and Kittel to fight it out again? We'd find out a few hours after they set out from Antwerp on a procession towards the finish line in Schotten, where the official start will be given around lunchtime. So the 101st Scheldeprijs looks like this. The race leaves the historic city of Antwerp before heading out south to Merle and Lichtaert, then turning west back towards the Antwerp region once more. 3 circuits of 16.4 kilometres around Schotten await at the end of the race. One for the sprinters, fairly flat, and only the presence of a few cobbled sections causing worries about the ability to get to the end and be involved in the almost inevitable bunch sprint to the line. As far as the weather was concerned, a headwind forecast for the end, and of course freezing conditions. That didn't help when Fabian Cancellara was involved in a crash before all the craziness began in the sprint to the line. Very early on in the race, the winner of the Tour of Flanders was on the ground and lost a bit of his clothing in the process. Good news for Radio Shack Leopard and Fabian Cancellara fans though. He managed to ride on towards the end of the race and of course continue his preparation for the weekend's Paris-Roubaix. The Swiss looking to do the double as he did a couple of years ago. Let's go out to the action then and see how the race panned out. So several breaks, several attempts at a break. One man who's been in each and every one of the attempts at the break so far is Matthew Bramier, the man in the Irish national championship, running for the Chinese team champion system. He's at the front now of a 3-man breakaway that has finally settled, and it includes, quite surprisingly, Sven van Dusselare and Stefano Borchi. And Dusselare might have been one of the men hoping to help Top Sport Vlaanderen in with a sprint here today, but count him out if he's going to be working hard in this breakaway for the moment. 2 minutes and 30 seconds is what they have. Nothing too much to worry about for the peloton. Plenty of flat road, 95 kilometres of it, in fact, with just those few cobbled sections on the final 3 circuits. As Stefano Borchi looks as though he has a mechanical. 4th pro year for the Italian rider. It's a back wheel as well, so there's some work to be done by Luca Scinto's men. The Vini Fantini team have already had success this year in Belgium. Oscar Gato winning Dwars door Vlaanderen, and that is a pretty neat wheel change. You can see the peloton being quite heavily strung out at the moment. A lot of that to do with quite big headwinds back in towards the finish today. And of course, the chase will be on. Being controlled by Blanca at the minute. We've had plenty of Omega Pharma quick-step riders, Garmin and Frances Desjeux, as Stefano Borchi still attempting to make sure he makes it back to the breakaway. It looks as though, thanks to the help of a few of the commissaire's cars, he will make it as well. Just explaining what went wrong. The rhythm can continue again. First glimpse of the day of Fran Ventoso there in the Spanish national champion shirt. Right in the middle of your picture. No Spaniard ever won this race before. They're up against big competition today. Pataki, McEwen, Farrar, Bonin, Kittel and Cavendish all won this race in recent years. So worth a note that the Lion of Flanders, Johan Museeuw, never managed to win here, but he did achieve a couple of second places. Loved the race enough to choose it as his retirement race in 2004 as well, preferring it to none other than Paris-Roubaix. His pre-race predictions for today were Cav to win, beating Kittel in a second, Arnaud Demar taking the last place on the podium, and in form Alexander Kristoff in fourth. Frederick Willems. Lotto Belisol, remember, without Andre Greipel today. Another of the men that really took on with great gusto the challenge of the weekend. You see the winner of that challenge riding at the back of the peloton today. In conversation with Luca Paolini, one of his adversaries for Paris-Roubaix at the weekend. It's very much an exercise in just keeping the legs ticking over to Paris-Roubaix for Cancellara. Very cold though still. Really hard to believe that it's the 3rd of April today. Chilly wind. 81 kilometers still to ride it, and you can see everybody with big thermal layers on as they take on this headwind. It is that easterly wind that's been causing the weather problems, in fact. Bringing all the weather from Siberia. Now the conversation will begin. I'm sure whatever Fabien says goes, really, for Radio Shack. Doug Demol is in the car again, the man who was director sportif at the weekend, as he took his second victory in the Tour of Flanders, the Ronde van Vlaanderen. This particular semi-classic, though, has more history than Flanders, believe it or not. It's actually 6 years older, the oldest race in this part of the world. 101st edition, celebrated its 100th anniversary back in 2007. Actually used to finish in the old velodrome in Antwerp. Now the city centre start by the riverbank. Largely symbolic with that procession we saw earlier on today out of town, all the way to the official start here at the finish line in Schoten. If we look back at the history of the race, despite this being fiercely proud Flemish territory, the race was first actually won by a Frenchman, believe it or not. Maurice Leturgie taking victory in the 1907 race. Will then be another 46 years, however, before a non-Belgian triumph. And when that happened, it was a Dutchman, Hans Dekkers, in 1953. All the energy gels being heavily consumed. Again, most people will be timing this to coincide with how things are going to go in the sprint train. 2 minutes 20, the gap coming down quite at a decent pace here. 63 Ks still remain. Well, we'll come to our circuit and passage of the finish line in around 13-14 kilometers time. That'll be the first passage past the arrival line. And then 3 circuits after that. This is the store at the front of the peloton, into the last 58 kilometers. You see the traffic stopped on one side of this dual carriageway. That's while the peloton passes through. For some, it's a disappointing interruption for their journey, I'm sure, but for most, given the cycling fandom in this part of the world, it's an opportunity to get a look at the oldest race in Flanders. One of the most prestigious, without doubt. In the meantime, Bramir van Dusselare and Borki, 3 riders up the road. 53 kilometers remaining, 1 minute and 11. Their advantage being eked out by the moment. It's not easy today. There's headwinds on the majority of the way into the line. Pretty cold, nasty ones as well, I can tell you. So here we go, sprint to the line for the first time. Soigneurs and team officials on hand with bottles should anybody want them. Megaform, a quick step, have a big presence. 1 minute, 1 second, that gap still coming down. As it stands, will probably be just under a minute. There's the peloton cross the line. So this is the run-in. Now, one little turn to the right, and it's that final stretch. Just look, the road isn't in the greatest of states. And as you can see, wobbles, turns, it's not the widest of roads either. It's an interesting finish. And now, with 3 laps to go, the clock starts ticking. It's a well-organised Blanco train at the moment. Rick Flen's doing most of the work. Van Mark followed by Jos van Enden. This just starts to stretch out a little with that control that Theo Bos's Blanco started to exert. And this is why they're exerting that control, because they knew that this was coming. The Brugstraat, 1.7 kilometers long. And look at that, all in a line, all protecting Theo Bos, making sure they're at the front. And if any trouble happens, they're not in the way of it. 36 seconds, look at this gap dropping. All thanks to the work being put on by the Blanco guys. Again, with 40 kilometers to go, remains to be seen whether this gap will now hold out through the finish line again. So I'm sure that this is the last time we will see them coming across the line as a breakaway. They're going to get the required cheer here as well. Just over 30 kilometers. The gap below 30 seconds now as Europcar come to the front alongside Tyler Farrar and Garmin. A couple of bikes almost getting a little too close for comfort there. And that's what can happen when concentration's lost. Just a question of a few hundred meters. Take a good look at them, because you probably won't see them again in this race after the next few moments. Now the break has been swallowed up. 26 k's to go just before we head to the cobbles. It's Sky and Francis Desjeux at the minute leading them. Megaform a quick step on the left. Plenty of riders in a train looking after Mark Cavendish. Now this is where we'll start to see all the respective sprinters' teams bunch up together, begin to start their trains, and certainly over these cobblestones, look after their riders. On they go again then. Third passage of the day over the Brugstraat. 1.7 kilometers of cobblestones. Off they come then. One more passage of the cobblestones to go. And that'll be on the final lap around town. Megaform quick-step team around Mark Cavendish. That long train of 5 riders all the way back to Mark Cavendish. Het Stegmans is the last man, and the man who should lead Cav out. So this is the last look they'll get at the finish line now. The last 250 meters as they roll through the line to hear the bell to be rung. Omega Pharma Quick-Step, Blanco, Argos Shimano, Lotto, all involved and controlling things at the front of the peloton. And now they want to keep the pace up to prevent any attacks here on the second and final time out of town. Quick flick of the arm. Means that the work is shared out. It was getting a little tight there. Oh dear. Now, who's got a back wheel puncture here for Blanco? It's Graham Brown, and he is a key component of that lead-out train for Theo Bos. Not what they wanted to happen. Blanco, at the moment, have their lead-out train in pieces. Well, looking down at the list, you'd expect it to be Brown, then Renshaw, then Bos. That should be the order. And Graham Brown is that important to this lead-out train that Seth Van Mark has come back to lead him back up to the front. How much will this effort take out of him, though? Certainly as we're heading onto the cobbles soon. Nasty turn in again, just outside the petrol station. Looks as though everybody has negotiated nice and safely. Now it's all about heading to the cobblestones. 11 Ks remaining. Tyler Farrar there taking a last-ditch transfer to the right-hand side. Just telling the bike to get out of the way. Oh dear, that was dangerous. Well, they both nearly came a cropper. Farrar could not believe it there. Look at this, get out the way, he says. And he nearly got straight into the peloton. What's going on there? It's one big swing to the right. And we head towards the cobbles. For the final time today, the Bruggestraat, 1.7 kilometers of bone-shaking cobblestones. The objective for each and every one of the teams here, keep your sprinter out of trouble. So that is it, cobblestones done. All about staying upright on this final corner. Most of the main men manage that. So 7 kilometers to go. It's all about setting up the sprint now. The bottles start to go. Any excess weight, anything that's not required, out and a souvenir for somebody. Well, the roads start to get thinner here. And it is not the safest of approaches. It's one that's going to have to be negotiated. There's a history of crashes at this finish, and we do not want any more today. Thomas still at the front for Sky. Again, the organisation just goes amiss from the teams for a moment. A few of the riders who've been working hard, getting out the way. 3 men left for Sky. Tyler Farrar sticking to their wheel. Looks as though the Garmin man's going to unfortunately have to go all on his own. Staying at the wheel of Bernie Eisel. Chris Buckman's at the front for Vacances Soleil. Romain Fayeux just behind him, 4th last year, remember. A little bit of a problem there with Tyler Farrar, struggling to stay upright. At the minute, it is Wagner who's leading them forward. Former German champion Robert Wagner. 3 Ks left. Jedminas banked on us now for Azure Dezern, that bright red, yellow and green shirt of the Lithuanian national champion. On his wheel, the main Azure Dezern sprinter, the powerhouse that is Eugenii Hutarovic, formerly a rider of Française des Jeux. Big right-hand 90-degree turn here, into the last 3 Ks. Sky still pulling at the front. Their sprinter is buried, though, beneath an increasingly crowded and unorganised start. Sutton it is who stays on Hutarovic's wheel. And some of the teams aren't enjoying the lack of organisation here, I'm sure. Looking around, and Mark Cavendish has been left quite isolated as well, you have to say. He'll want to get that remedied and sorted. Argos and Blanco looking fairly good here. Netap Endura suddenly out of nowhere to push forward. Roger Kluger really pulling it out. Big right-hand turn now. Heading towards the last kilometre. Round 1.5 still to go. Stretched out, Euskaltel will have a rider forward. Cavendish not the best placed if he's looking to break that record. Needs to make his way up. He's been getting better and better at finding his own way in the sprints, there's no doubt about that. Moved a masterclass at it last week in Depano when his team really failed for him. It looks as though they're struggling to do the main job for him again here. Riders from all sorts of teams make their way to the front. Jose Joaquim Rojas is there. Looks behind, looks to see if he can see Ventoso, who's pushed in the back as well. Azure Dezern with them out. This is where it starts to get interesting. Top foot Vlaanderen now. Into the last kilometre. Crowds start to gather on the road. This is where it's being pulled out now. Lotto on the right-hand side looking to get De Hayes in. Cavendish buried on the right-hand side in the base of your picture. Needs to make his way up and needs to get on a good wheel. Into the final few hundred metres. 400 to go. They've been racing for 4 hours, 40 minutes now. Cavendish in the centre of your screen, getting on the wheel, the NTM man. It's going to be Lotto who are going to lead this sprint out alongside Argo Shimano, and it's being led out now. Cavendish on the left-hand side, and it's Kittel on the right, Boss in the centre, Farage there as well, Cav on the left. It's a real fight for the line in the last 200 metres, and it will be Marcel Kittel who takes it ahead of Mark Cavendish. No record this time for Cav, and after coming in with a very, very limited amount of days on his back, it is a wonderful win in a pretty disorganised sprint for Marcel Kittel, who will come back to this race next year with a number 1 on his back yet again. So Kittel ahead of Cavendish. Barry Marcus in third of Vacan Soleil. Andrea Guardini make it into fourth, Christophe fifth. And congratulations begin for Marcel Kittel, who said he was here to enjoy the day, wasn't sure if he was in the right sort of form to defend it. He's been poor so far this year, injury, illness affecting him. But how about that for the third win of the year and the defence of a title as he wins the Scheldeprijs for the second year running. Well, look at this. It was disorganised, it was messy. Everything could have happened. Cavendish was left high and dry by his team. Every man for themselves in the run to the line. Kittel launched it first, and Cavendish was gaining on him all the time. Boss struggling to stay up. Plenty of going across wheels. Cav was getting there, but needed more time. Great sprint from Kittel. Cavendish disappointed with himself. No record this time for the Manxman. And a big, long, well-wound-up sprint from the German star Marcel Kittel. He is a huge unit, and today has secured a very, very good win indeed for Argos Shimano. Let's go and speak to the winner then. Here's Marcel Kittel.
Your story of the sprint?
Full gas all out, and then trying to reach the finish line as first. It was pretty hectic. I was really lucky that Tom Wellers could bring me on the left side to the front then. Yeah, and then from 200, I don't know, 50, 30 meters, I just went full gas on the left side, and it was a little bit of headwind, but yeah, I managed to reach the line as first. I'm super happy about it.
How has your season been so far? You won a stage in Paris in Oman, I know, but for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it was quite some up and down. After Paris I was sick, I had the flu. And I thought, yeah, okay, if I could keep that shape till the Scheldeprijs, then I'm pretty sure that I can go for the win. So since I was sick, I was not so sure anymore if I can still go for the victory here. And yeah, I just was really focused on this day today. And yeah, I have to say a big thank you to my team. They did a lot of work, tried to keep me in front. And yeah, it's awesome to win again.
Mark, I understand you're very disappointed. Can you tell us what's your story of the sprint?
Just came from about 20 back with 200 to go. That's it, it's too far back.
Lack of teammates, is that it? Is that the explanation?
I don't know. Yeah, we ride so well. The whole day we ride so well until the last kilometres, you know. I mean.
For the Tour de France, are you hitting with the fist on the table with Patrick Lefevere to ask Tom Boonen of being there in the Tour de France? You need Tom Boonen for the sprint.
I'd absolutely love Tom at the Tour de France. I'd absolutely love that more than anything. He's just going away now. You know, he needs to get his head right. It's been a disappointing season for him. You know, bad luck, and you know, he'll come back strong. He's been going strong. Just had a lot of bad luck this year, and hopefully, you know, he gets some time to relax and he can come back fit, and we'll go with a strong team to Tour de France.
So Marcel Kittel managed to show gritty determination to fight his way over the line first and secure a first victory since Paris-Nice last month, the third time he's experienced that winning feeling this season. Mark Cavendish will have to wait another 12 months to attempt to take the record for the number of successes in this prestigious race, whilst Barry Marcus and Vacan Soleil can celebrate a rare podium sprinting against the big names. More strong results for the likes of Christophe and Guardini sees their stock continue to rise, whilst the Belgian wait for a victory here will go on for an 8th year. Kenny de Hees was the best placed local man, 7th. The eyes of the professional cycling world focus over the border to France this weekend for Paris-Roubaix, but there's more Flanders Classics action in a week's time. We'll be back with Brabantse Pijl, the Flèche Brabançonne. Until then, from me, Rob Hatch, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye.